We'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, members of the board, cabinet, and Superintendent McLaughlin. It is a pleasure to appear before you and provide an update on the district's COVID-19 efforts as we enter the 2021-2022 school year. Pursuant to numerous mandates established at varying levels of government, all schools have been cleared to open for in-person learning this year. To that end, we are required to adopt various guidelines and recommendations created at the local, state, and federal organization levels delineated on this slide. As of today, we are still awaiting guidance from several of these organizations. One document, as you may recall, that I spoke about quite often in previous board meetings is the Alameda County School Guidance Document. This document is a joint effort between the Alameda County Office of Education and the Alameda County Public Health Department and included 58 pages of specific guidance for school districts regarding all aspects of managing COVID-19 in a school environment, and also reflected Alameda County's stance on what school districts need to do to maintain COVID-19 safety. As the state's posture was modified regarding COVID-19 and guidelines relaxed for all industries, the Alameda County Public Health Department's requirements fell more in line with state and federal guidelines. This document, once 58 pages in length, has now been reduced to a 9-page link document that acts as a resource for school districts to access numerous other guidance documents at the local, state, and federal levels. Over the last several weeks, we have been diligently working on incorporating and modifying all of our protocols to meet all of the new guidance that has been published. To highlight some of the significant changes that have been made since last school year, I want to draw your attention to the item that is first and foremost on our minds, and that is the wearing of face masks. Face masks, pursuant to new guidance, is now required only in an indoor setting in a K-12 environment. Face masks are optional in outdoor settings. The COVID-19 reporting process that we have grown quite accustomed to over the last year has remained the same. When a positive case is identified, the positive person must still isolate and those in close contact must quarantine. There are some differences between vaccinated and unvaccinated persons, where if the vaccinated person is exposed and is asymptomatic, the vaccinated person does not have to quarantine any longer. Additionally, the California Department of Public Health has created a modified quarantine period of 10 days and 7 days respectively if certain conditions exist, such as a negative COVID test after day 5 of exposure and participation in twice-weekly testing. All other reporting requirements for positive cases to state and local health departments remain the same. In regards to our screening processes, they have changed slightly. If you recall, the district implemented a self-screening process for students via the Parent Square application and one for staff via the Frontline Health Portal application. Staff and students were required to self-screen prior to coming to school or work each day. If they were ill in any way or were exposed to someone with COVID-19, they were not to attend school or work that day and were required to notify their principal or immediate supervisor. Additionally, students and staff that did not complete the self-screening process were required to participate in an active screening process prior to entering the campus. We will no longer be requiring the active screening process component. The self-screening process will remain in effect. One of the major changes for school districts this year is the removal of the physical distancing requirements on campuses. No longer will students or staff need to distance themselves. Although there are no longer physical distancing requirements in place, students and staff will be encouraged to reasonably distance from each other whenever possible. Arrival and departure protocols have been changed to reflect returning to pre-COVID campus access. No longer will we be required to have a single point of entrance. We will now be able to have students enter and exit through normally identified areas. Recommendations provided by the California Department of Public Health still remain stringent in regards to visitors on campus. Visitors pursuant to guidelines will only be allowed on campuses if they have an appointment with a site administrator. All visitors will receive the newly created district's COVID-19 disclaimer, which states, if you are feeling ill in any way, have symptoms of COVID-19, or have potentially been exposed to someone with suspected or confirmed COVID-19, please do not attend this meeting, event, or whatever particular program you were there to attend. Lastly, all activities inclusive of ACES, champions, PE, recess, food service, band, orchestra, choir, clubs, and all of our athletic programs will all resume as per pre-COVID guidelines. Protocols for each of these activities are in the process of being drafted and will be published by the end of this week. As you can see, there have been significant changes as to how the school district will be operating under this new COVID-19 umbrella and how we are going to keep students and staff as safe as possible. As such, we have been talking to our contemporaries in other districts and have been engaging in ongoing discussions internally over these new changes. What we have found is that there are three universal themes that are emerging as potential best practices for implementation for the 2021-2022 school year. I would like to present these best practices to you for consideration for adoption as part of our COVID-19 program. These best practices include, number one, the implementation of a universal masking protocol. So this would expand our requirement above and beyond what the California Department of Public Health is requiring. And we would ask that we're able to require masks indoors and outdoors in a K through 12 setting. So in essence, taking out the optional outdoor requirement or guideline and making it a requirement for anybody in a K through 12 setting to have to wear masks at all times. This new protocol will provide our district with a multi-layered program, both indoors and outdoors, to help us prevent the spread of COVID-19 in a school setting. The second best practice recommendation is requiring staff to provide their vaccination status to the district. By doing this, this will assist us in our contact tracing and investigation efforts, as we will be able to quickly determine who will need to quarantine and how long their quarantine will have to be based on newly developed guidelines by the California Department of Public Health. And third, we are asking for your consideration to require all unvaccinated staff to participate in a twice-a-week COVID-19 testing program. This will act as an early warning system for San Leandro Unified School District so that we can easily identify potential COVID-19 positive cases within the district before they reach a level of what the health department will consider an outbreak. Also this year, to assist our staff and our community in understanding what school will look like this year as it pertains to COVID-19, we are in the process and almost in the finalization stage of developing a COVID-19 fact sheet. This fact sheet will provide students, families, and staff with answers to their questions regarding what to expect upon their return to full in-person learning environment. We are continuing to work closely with the Alameda County Office of Education and the Alameda County Public Health Department in the implementation of our protocols as we prepare for our opening on August 18th. I want to thank each of you for all of your support during these challenging times. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Start with questions from our board before we take public comments. Any questions? Trustee Oshinsky.
You know how long I waited to push that button.
I know. It's been a whole year.
So just a comment, I wholeheartedly agree with your best practices and recommendations, especially number 2 in regards to vaccination status, because as you said, that will hurry up the likelihood of doing contact tracing, as well as you only have to ask once. So I think that's a good, all 3 are great recommendations.
Any other comments? Okay, Trustee Tate.
Well, thank you, Rocky, for your presentation. I really like the handbook that was reduced from 58 pages to 9, and with the working links. So that's really convenient for people to access. And great job on the superintendent of schools and the public health officer for consolidating that and making it more user-friendly. Thank you.
Trustee Frola.
I just wanted to say thank you for including the universal masking. I mean, indoors and outdoors, I think is really important in the school because you can't keep kids separate otherwise. So thank you very much for doing that.
I have a couple of questions. So the universal masking indoor and outdoor, yes, I totally support it. It says K-12. I'm assuming we're also going to be doing this for the adult school as well. So just anything that we're doing K-12 applies to the adult school. Okay, perfect.
That is correct.
Okay, perfect. And then have we explored testing for students who wish to be tested, whose parents would like them to be regularly tested by our school sites?
We are currently looking at all available programs that are being pushed out by Alameda County Public Health and Alameda County Office of Education, and looking at those in an in-depth manner to best determine which program would work for San Leandro Unified School District and which program would be most beneficial to our various programs.
We will be able to, we'll have the ability to do that. Okay, we're just looking at programs, the ability to test and vaccine, you know, all that which should happen.
Leo or? Oh.
Yes, thank you, President Gonzalez. I want to thank you, Rocky, for your presentation, and I appreciate the recommendations for best practices, especially the universal mask mandate. I mean, to me, it's obviously it's a no-brainer for helping to spread the curve, or helping curb the spread of COVID-19 for individuals to protect themselves. But also, you know, for me, you look at some of the younger kids and the stigma that could be attached for some kids who don't feel safe or do not want to take off their mask, and to help avoid the teasing and that type of stuff that goes on. If we just make it universal, we can avoid all of that. One of the questions I do have, because I know we are going to have some public comment, and I've had a lot of emails about PE in middle schools and high schools and changing. I know you guys are still working on the language. Do you have any information on that?
Yes, sir. So all of our PE and recess activities will be returning to a pre-COVID-19 status, which means that all of our recess activities at our elementary schools will be able to continue as we did prior to COVID. So students will be able to engage in activities with their friends. They will no longer have to stay in that pod format like we had to do when we reopened on April 12th for our hybrid learning model. They'll be able to utilize playground equipment, basketballs, footballs, any type of equipment that we normally would provide for recess activities will be made available to all of our student body. In regards to PE at the middle school and high school levels, PE will resume just like recess at a pre-COVID capacity. All students will dress for PE, and they will be able to engage in all activities that they normally were able to prior to COVID-19.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information. I appreciate it.
So let's take the public comments now. I can't see. Okay, Katie, I think it's Egan.
Yep, that's right. Thank you so much. I'm the parent of a high schooler and I teach at a community college, so we've been discussing all of this too. One, I'm glad to hear, Rocky, about the differential quarantine requirements for students depending on whether they're vaccinated or not. I was wondering about that. I'm also wondering if there's discussions at the state or local level of mandating the vaccine for staff and students once it's approved by the FDA. I'm wondering if you're going to be having a vaccination site on campuses so it can be easier for students. I recognize they need approval from their parents, but easier for students to get the vaccine. And lastly, I don't have an elementary schooler anymore, but as a wife of a musician, I'm wondering if for music, you're going to be safe by having like bells on wind instruments and special masks for them to be able to blow, but still have a mask on. So that's my last question.
Sure. So in regards to your question about mandated vaccinations, at this point in time, there is no language at the federal, state, or local levels in regards to the mandating of vaccinations. We have in the past, and we will continue to partner with the Alameda County Public Health Department and the Alameda County Office of Education in hosting vaccination sites on a voluntary basis at various campuses to make it readily available to all those who wish to get vaccinated. And the vaccinations do not only stop at our student body. They can bring their parents, other family members in to go ahead and get vaccinated. All they simply have to do is come in or make their appointment prior to showing up, and we're more than happy to facilitate all of our community in getting vaccinated. In regards to your question about music and other extracurricular activities, we have a very, very thorough protocol on musical instrument, marching band, choir, drama, and it all follows guidelines established at the federal, state, and local levels. It does have specific requirements in there for students that are going to be playing wind instruments, that requires bell covers on their instruments, and also requires the wearing of a mask with a slit in it so that we can prevent the spread of aerosolized saliva to students that are sitting to either the left or the right of the student actually playing the instrument. So we've got a very comprehensive plan to make sure that not only are we facilitating as much as possible going back to pre-COVID activities, but also making sure that all of our student body gets an in-depth educational experience and does not leave our campuses feeling that they did not get to participate in any specific activity.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the question. I forgot to say there's a two-minute limit for the question. So, Lars.
Hi, it's actually Lars's wife, Lynn. Thank you for taking the question. So my question is about access to the elementary school campus prior to school hours. In the past, I would arrive with my sons at say 7:20, between 7:20 and 7:30. They would play on the playground until the bell rang. I would be there supervising them. And this is very common in elementary school campuses where parents are with their children on the playground before school starts. And it's a really great way to transition, get some sun and air and exercise before sitting down to study in their classrooms. Is that going to be allowed this year, or can our parents consider part of that visitor group?
So we had that specific discussion earlier today, and we're working on some guidelines surrounding that. We want to encourage our parents to be able to come onto campus. I know a lot of our parents like to eat breakfast with their student prior to the start of the school day, and also to be able to play on the equipment that we have at all of our campuses. As I said, we're working on some succinct language to be able to incorporate that. We do have language now in place where we talk about visitors on campus and how they need to make an appointment with the site administrator. But we'll be, as we start to reopen and as we look at what the COVID climate is in Alameda County, we'll be able to better address that as in each passing day so that we can then get back to being able to provide that level of access to our parents.
Okay, thank you, Rocky. Thank you very much for your report. Superintendent Mike McLaughlin, would you like to make any comments or?
Yeah, thank you, Rocky. And again, we're excited to get our kids back on campus. Again, as 4 weeks ago, we were talking about one thing, and now we're back at, the situation at hand. So I'm happy to say that we have the staff and the resources to be able to pivot and move forward. In our meeting last week with Dr. Moss from Alameda County Health, it was clear from him that we're in the middle of a wave, and this wave should probably go until the end of September and maybe into October. So it's, for me, it's crucial for us to be more cautious now, and as things get better, we can switch to different mandates of masks and parents. As a parent of a student who goes a year-round school, right now parents aren't allowed on campus. Okay, they have done things before school started so parents can see where the classrooms are and things like that. But it's that unknown factor of having mass amounts of people that we don't know going on campus. So yeah, these rules are changing again. Like when COVID started, back in March 2020, it's a lot of questions. And again, our officials are trying to give us answers as quick as possible without really too much mandate again. So we got a specialist. Rocky has really been diving into this. And my recommendation is I work with some of our unions on the vaccine mandate and testing. I think they're in agreement with us that it's crucial that we know, first of all, who's been vaccinated, and second, that we can get people vaccinated. If not, we need to test them. I think that gives some assurance to not only other staff members, but also to parents who have children at our schools. So I'm looking forward to moving forward with some of these, like many of our districts that are around us that have already done. So, I appreciate the questions from the parents. Of course, you want to bring your kid in the morning and play on the playground. I think the cafeteria is what we're working with because we do it for one, we got to do it for all. So how do we fix that system? So those are the questions we're looking to get answers soon because we're opening next week. All I can finish with is even Dr. Moss said, and I'm in agreement, we need to have these kids back in school. And even the health officials believe it's more dangerous for them to be at home. They need to get back in school, and we need to do what we can as a school district to keep them safe. And I think we can do that, with all of the guidance from Rocky, and the health will follow along with that. So the board's fine with that. I'd like to move forward with some of those recommendations again, I've heard, I don't want to do some, I think I get done before the start of school year. I'd like to work with the other unions just to make sure we're all on the same page, at least for the vaccines and testing. For the mask, I just feel that, although uncomfortable at times, even with adults, through this wave, it's important for us to stop it now, you know, and we can be uncomfortable. We've been uncomfortable for almost 2 years. I think we could be uncomfortable for a couple more months, and then hopefully we get through this wave and change that to more of an optional mask thing at some point as we move forward. So, but again, it's I'd rather always, you see me before, sign on caution, you know, instead of just jumping right into it, because this thing's coming quickly. And that's what I'm looking to do. So I don't know what the board is. Again, it's we have a lot to do here in the next week, but we have the team to do it. I mean, we're okay. We got, like I said, safety, cleaning, all those other things, protocols. We're ready to go. So we're ready to open up. It's just some of these new, recommendations. I think we need to look at before. Like I said, Hayward has already implemented masks the whole time. Fremont, perfectly unified. So it's starting to open down the corridor.
So it's not a formal vote on the recommendations, but it's consensus. And so shake your head or give a thumbs up if you're good for the district to move forward with those recommendations. And Leo and Christian, you're good with it?
Yeah, my thumbs up.
And Christian, you're good? See your thumbs up. Okay, perfect.
Remember when we talked, I mean, we hoped at this point to have people in the audience. You know, we would hope to have this and hope to have that. And so like I said, we got to pivot and be ready to tackle this thing. So I appreciate that, and I will keep you up to date on how we move forward. So, and we'll communicate to the public and to our parents as quickly as we can.
Okay.